I've made many videos about the upcoming DLC maps for Black Ops 6 Zombies, DLC 2 Dig Site, Richthofen's Haunted Mansion or Murder Mansion, as well as Janus Towers. And I was so excited for all three of these maps. I am currently away at the time of posting this video, so I just thought I would put together all of my extremely long videos as a compilation, a couple focusing on Dig Site, and then one dedicated to Mansion as well as Janus Towers. There'll be timestamps on screen, so you can skip to each one. There may be more news for DLC 2 in the coming week whilst I'm away. I'll try and cover everything, but I can't promise anything, but I'll be covering it of course when I am back, which should be very shortly. Anyways, enjoy the compilation. Very long, but very interesting. Black Ops 6 Zombies DLC 2 The Dig Site Excavation. Citadelle Des Morts has just released, but just like with Terminus, it's already teasing the next map to follow. Of course, we've had this map leaked in the files of the game for a very long time, so we knew we were heading to a dig site. We just didn't know exactly where and in what fashion, but it seems like some of our recent theories about it being another map set in Avalon did in fact prove to be true. Digging into Dig Site, as you know, at the end of the Citadelle Des Morts cutscene, Easter egg cutscene, Weaver and the rest of the Terminus crew make it very clear that our next map location is going to be the dig site informed by Craft.
Craft, we need to know, what do we do with the amulet?
Take it to the excavation site.
And the dig site he mentioned. It is not far.
I'm going to be having a full video breaking down this cutscene and a load of storyline regarding this map, which will either be going live soon after this one or it's already live, which will be linked down below and on screen once it is. And I do talk about dig site within that, but in this video I wanted to dedicate an entire video to just this, and deep dive into some of the intel in the game as well that are hinting at this map, so we can start to build a good idea of what this map is going to look like. As well as this map is literally already viewable in the game, which is absolutely crazy, and we can use what we know to start to theorize about the map and whether or not the Origins connection that everyone seems to be making has any legs to stand on. First of all, let's take a look at this intel about Craft, as it includes a great picture of the dig site map itself, giving us our first look. This location featured is very reminiscent of the Dig multiplayer map from Black Ops 2, but it is also seemingly a location we can actually find in the bigger Avalon map. So as you know, Avalon is an upcoming Warzone map releasing next year, and many of the multiplayer maps are taking place in this location as well. And while Citadelle Des Morts is not a part of this Warzone map, it turns out this dig site point of interest actually is. And I've been speculating about this in videos because basically there is this big mount, this hill, and there is the dig site multiplayer map on the right, and then to the left of it, you see the dig site Zombies map, literally slap bang next to each other. So I'm sure when Dig eventually comes to multiplayer, whether it's in Black Ops 6 or 2025, maybe we're going to be able to see this Zombies map in the distance. But many people are saying this Zombies map is a Dig remake, and it definitely is not. We're not going to be playing on the multiplayer map. It's a section that is very similar, and as you can see from the images on screen, it literally lines up with this new image in the intel. So I was making prior videos speculating that, maybe this could be the dig site, but now we know it to definitely be true. And this gives us an idea of how this room from this map is going to be laid out, and potentially some of the connections to other areas. We see entrances to caves that don't load in very well, as of course this is an early build of Avalon. All of these are very low res textures, so it's very likely that we'll see some zombies unique underground areas in this map. I personally think that all we're seeing in the Warzone experience is just the spawn of the map, and it's very, very small. It's absolutely tiny, so no way this would just be the entire map. So I think it's very obvious the majority of the map is going to be underground, and it's going to be maybe very reminiscent of Buried, because you see all of these mining tunnels and all of this stuff that we can probably venture underground through. Now on the intel image itself, there is something very, very important. It's so hard to miss the giant face in the middle of the ground of the dig site, and it's probably one of the most important reasons why this excavation site was even being done here. The statue looks to be made of marble or stone and depicts part of a face and its side. This face looks very similar to the face of the Roman god Janus, so could this statue depict the true reason of Richthofen's project, titular god? And if So, could this ancient site of the Sentinel artifact and its connection to Janus be the reason for the name? We have been long since speculating about this Janus god and its connections, and it could very well be that the Janus god is actually going to be for the Sentinel artifact on this map, coming full circle. And I have a theory as well, what if the Janus god is the Shadow Man and Monty recombined when they got purged in the Dark Ether? That would be a big plot twist and would bring things full circle and would really explain as to why we've never probably left the cycle and the original crew may be returning, undoing their demise, because they may never be able to escape, just as the accursed one. And with this statue of Janus, this also presents an interesting connection to the underground layouts we discussed, as Janus is usually depicted as having two faces, front and back, one looking forward into the past and one into the future, both physically and thematically. And Janus is the god of beginnings, gateways, transitions, endings. It's perfect and aligns with Monty and the Shadow Man being there at the beginning and the end of the storyline, having to be purged and creating the universes and dimensional travel. And they may have been communicating with ancient Rome back in the day.
When he opens a door, the god unleashes a new cycle, and this can be a new cycle of harvest, or the passage from childhood to adult life. This god was depicted with two faces and had a key in his hands. As a god, he would be the deity responsible for protecting doors and gates. He is also associated with the beginning and the end of wars.
This means that it's possible we may go underground here and we could see the other face on the ceiling of Janus looking down at us from the chasm ceiling, providing an interesting aesthetic as well as potential quest opportunities. And it would be a huge revelation as well. You know, you spawn in on the map, you see this giant face, but you don't realize it's the Janus god until you go underneath and then you see, wait, there's another side. But this is just speculation here. It may not be the Janus god, but it looks very similar to all of the depictions that you see of it online. It could be another god entirely. Now, it's very likely that the bit of the reused Avalon point of interest here we're going to see will serve, like I say, as the spawn, because we are seeing it this early. If this was all the map has to offer, which it doesn't make any sense why it would be, because it would be as small as, you know, say Town from Black Ops 2, if not way smaller actually. So there's no way that's going to be the case, and the fact that Treyarch were fine with letting you view this in multiplayer means that surely it isn't a big deal and there's much more secrets to this map for us to uncover. And whatever the map really holds will be buried underground along with the Sentinel artifact, which is the entire reason for this map's existence. So many people were speculating that on Citadelle Des Morts we would be activating the Sentinel artifact and we would be doing a trial, but it makes more sense, you know, they're delaying it for a map. It's not going to be that easy, we're not going to get it straight away, and now we're going to have to head to very close by in Avalon, so we are literally just down the street from Citadel. Now, like I said earlier, Citadel is not part of the Warzone map, but Dig Site is. But what I think this means is that you are not going to be able to explore the Zombies map in its entirety in the Warzone experience when it eventually releases. I think you will just be able to go in the spawn area, and it's probably not going to look exactly the same as well. There'll be lots of barriers and textures that are missing in the Warzone version, because obviously the Zombies version will be more ambient. And I know Treyarch did release a statement before the game release saying that all of the Zombies maps would be original. However, I still don't think they're technically lying here, because I do think this map was probably originally concepted for Zombies, but it was kind of just slapped into the Warzone experience as well, because it is a part of it, and it's just really a small little point of interest, which, like I say, I think the majority of the map will be underground with lots of secrets to uncover. And whilst the map is referred to as this excavation site and a dig site in the files, I doubt it's going to be the actual map name, because Citadel is codenamed the Keep in the files, and even it's referenced just as the Keep in the Terminus ending, but then we turned out the name is a bit more complicated than that, so it's likely we see a more complicated name for Dig Site, maybe even something to do with Roman mythology or whatever mythology the map is going to be based around, depending on whoever this statue is. But the thing is, when is going to be the release date? Well, right now the leaked maps from the files of the game have all been aligning, and apparently there's only going to be 2 more after this, so 4 DLC maps like we're used to, which kind of makes sense considering COD 2025 Zombies is on the horizon. They've got to pump out a whole other year of Zombies content, so we shouldn't really be expecting a crazy amount of content. I wish, because of the long dev time, but I don't think it was as simple as that, unfortunately. But what this means is that we might be in for a bit of a wait for DLC 2, because we're going to be in a similar situation to Dead of the Night, where this map is released so early, literally just a month after release pretty much, when usually we would get a map, you know, at the end of January, beginning of February. So the wait for DLC 2 is going to be a lot longer. I have to assume that Season 2 is not going to see a new zombies map, so hopefully Treyarch have substantial content in the meantime. Many different modes have been found in the files of the game, so maybe they're just going to do modes when there aren't new zombies maps, as well as new perks, field upgrades, the regular jazz during that time, festive events as well, or crossover events with different franchises, such as the one that's coming up for Squid Game. Not sure if it's going to have anything to do with the zombies though. So this may mean that we might not be getting DLC 2 until Season 3, which literally may not be until April, which is forever away. And then the DLC 3 map may be Season 4 Reloaded, with the final map being in Season 6 in September. Of course, these can shift around a bit, but this is general timing. And according to the Battle Pass end date, Season 2 should be on Tuesday the 28th of January 2025, although now seasons begin on Thursdays instead, so I have to assume that would mean the 30th, but I guess it could be the 29th if they go back to a Wednesday. And then we'll have a long 2-month wait after that, potentially until the next map. So I hope this next one is good, but I'm gonna have lots of storyline videos in the meantime that I can use this gap to fill, because right now I've been planning so many storyline videos, but I just couldn't manage to get them out in time for Citadel releasing so soon. Now another question is exactly what the dig site is, and what kind of relics would be found there besides the Sentinel artifact. If the owl from Citadelle Des Morts had the key to the Sentinel artifact as an item, and the artifact itself was buried nearby, it's very likely this land and the treasures here were also in his possession as well. This opens up an interesting further question: could this dig site be the potential burial ground for the Bastard Sons, the 4 Templar Knights? We saw where the owl was laid to rest, but his sons seemingly have no burial sites to be found in Citadel. However, it's quite possible that's because they are buried nearby, off of the grounds of his castle, considering the fact he's never legally or publicly claimed his sons.
Sir Guy de Saint-Michel, known to most as the Owl, the man who may have single-handedly destroyed the legendary Knights Templar. Guy was the leading expert of his day in all matters occult. His prowess in the dark arts won him his knightbird sobriquet. That reputation made it easy to accuse the Templars of heresy, and while their leadership was burned at the stake, the Owl escaped to Avalon. But he would have never succeeded without his bastards. 4 sons who stopped at nothing to win his favor. Their true names are lost to history, but their noms de guerre still inspire fear and hatred. The Stag was his shock trooper, striking like lightning when least expected. The Dragon's scorched earth tactics betrayed his reptilian lack of mercy. The Lion was the brightest of the 4, always keen to please his master. And the Raven, like his father, was a creature of the shadows. And although they served him faithfully, the Owl would never acknowledge their birthright, much less knight them. Nor would he give them what they desired most: love, respect, recognition. They were useful as thugs, enforcers. Sadly, all relationships, even those built on love, respect, and recognition, will break in time. But the Bastard's reign of terror in what would become Avalon echoed through the ages, giving rise to the French Syndicate.
If they are buried here, it sets up an easy slam dunk for Treyarch's level design team to do some great callbacks to Origins in the visuals of the underground portions of the map, with the Bastard Sons being the group of 4, just like the original characters, medieval knights. The aesthetics of the 4 large statues in the burial chamber and ancient underground constructions could easily be a callback to and even extended upon. Not to mention the idea that there is decent evidence that this dig site could very well be this universe's version of Origins, in the same way D Machine was an actor Untoten. This dig site is in Avalon, a principality of France, specifically in northern France, and it is also seemingly set very nearby to Citadelle Des Morts. And in Citadelle Des Morts, if we inspect the rocks around the underground boss arena closely, we can quite clearly see the circular patterns from the stones of the crazy place all around. This would mean that the chamber, essentially, considering it is in France, very likely is the exact same, or at least the new version of the crazy place from Origins in this timeline. And whilst, yes, dig site is clearly clearly not Origins. Visually, layout-wise, it's a very different map. Thematically, they are very similar, and it is pretty much set in the same place. So this is the new version of Origins storyline-wise, but maybe not gameplay-wise. The point in the world is the same. What it symbolizes for the story is similar, but it doesn't seem to be an Origins remake or an Origins remaster in that regard. It's just paying homage to the map. This would mean that the chamber, especially considering it's in France, very likely is the same crazy place from Origins. All the more reason that a nearby dig site could very likely be this new incarnation of Origins, and either we have never left the cycle or this is some kind of remnants from the cycle that's been left over in a paradoxical sense, or at least what Origins is in the post-chaos timeline of the Dark Ether story. There's also frankly a very real interpretation to be made that the Bastard Sons may very well be an alternative universe version of the original characters who are perhaps wiped away during the ending of Tag der Toten. Maybe this isn't an entirely new universe, but the universe was playing out or got plucked from that prior multiverse when Nikolai activated the Agarthan device. Maybe time was playing out differently in the seconds we saw the universe prospering and birthing, and in that time billions of years played out for this universe, and there was a version of the original characters who could be these Bastard Sons, but they maybe got purged with the rest of Ultimus and Primus when they sacrificed their lives. This would explain their names and identities being lost to history and the consistent thematic connections with their characters and the original crew. For now, I will save that for a deeper dive for a video coming up very soon, though. We're going to be diving very deep into this because I am very convinced this is going to be the theory. We know the original characters are rumored to return for COD 2025 Zombies. This can be them sowing the seeds, and I didn't think they would start doing it this early on. So I think it's very likely we could see some sort of catacomb or tomb underground in this map that is this version of the Origins statues of Primus. We also get an idea on when construction on this dig site began and just who did it from another intel featuring a new character, Archibald, Fotherington, Smythe, and none other than Alistair Rhodes from the Chaos storyline. Now, I'll make a whole video talking in the future, talking about all of the new Chaos story connections that have been introduced on this map, because there are many, some of which I think people aren't picking up on either. But I'll let you listen to this intel now.
I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude for your eagerness, Sir Archibald.
Nonsense, old boy. I won't hear a word of it. I'd be a fool and a rank amateur to pass on an opportunity to collaborate. Your research is so thorough, not to mention groundbreaking.
Yes. Well, your endeavor is integral to my work, and we will both reap the benefits. Now, it's of vital importance that you don't let the reputation of the place color your senses.
Yes, I've been conducting inquiries as to the procurement of local workers, but thus far it's all been coming up a little empty. As far as I can tell, no one wants a damn thing to do with the place. If you ask me, the whole thing smacks of hysteria, which, between us, could be quite the positive. What? Makes it more likely the site's not been looted already.
Indeed. I'll shoulder the cost for you to recruit outside the area. Some sturdy ruffians is what's called for. You'll need the muscle. Given the amount I'm shelling out, I expect you to run a tight ship, Sir Archibald. This excavation is to be efficient, targeted, discreet, and do not return without the artifact in hand.
You have no fear. I wouldn't dream of it. We Fotherington Smythes are a tenacious lot once we set our minds to something.
Good man. I wish you luck on your travels. I imagine we'll be much changed the next time we see one another. Now, another spot of port.
Rather.
So there is a new character here, Archibald, who's hired by Alistair to start a dig site nearby to where they are in search for the Sentinel artifact. So this is the premise for the map. But before I dive into that, I'm really confused here about Archibald, because if you are unaware, on the PlayStation 4 version of Blood of the Dead, the intel actually referred to Brutus, the warden's name, as being Archibald, but I think it was something that Treyarch cut from the actual release of the game and they didn't end up going with that name, but people have ran with it over the years and they've thought that this is Brutus's name. And in fact, I even said it in my entire zombie storyline video. I probably shouldn't have stated it as canon. Technically, it wasn't, but I mean, it did appear in the game, just not in the traditional sense. But it has me wondering if this is this universe's version of Archibald. Obviously, his character is like this snobby British man, very different to who the Warden was, but maybe this could be this universe's version of Archibald, living a completely different life to where we found him on Alcatraz last. But it really has me wondering, is Brutus going to return in the storyline at some point? Because apparently Klaus is going to be rumored for the Janus Towers DLC map, and both Klaus and Brutus are the Vault Edition operators, so are they both going to play an integral role in the zombie storyline as well, for them to be a nice duo? And they're apparently both voiced by Nolan North similarly, so it makes sense. But going off on a bit of a tangent, considering this intel is found here in Avalon, it's very likely it was recorded here and Alistair was in search of the same Sentinel artifact we are. This means that the dig site will also likely feature many of the same magical and chaos-like elements we saw littering Citadelle Des Morts, especially considering Alistair mentions the reputation of the place shouldn't turn Archibald away. So honestly, this map may dive way more into the fantasy, magic elements of the chaos storyline, more than even Citadelle Des Morts does. Maybe that was only dipping its toes into it, and now we're going to get an absolutely chaotic, demonic map, and I'm hoping they have all sorts of craziness underground. Like, you think about it, there could be all sorts of these weird magical crystals and these glowing different colors. I think with Citadelle Des Morts, I really like all of the magic elements, but it's a very brown, grayish map. I'm looking for something more colorful, and from the Warzone map, obviously it's very low res, and from the image we've gotten, it leaves much to be desired, and it looks aesthetically similar to Citadel, where it's very bland. So I'm hoping that's just kind of the Spawn color palette, but underground we have some craziness going on. But anyways, we also have the warning from Kraft to not let the Sentinel artifact consume us in the ending cutscene, which is such an interesting choice of words.
But beware the Sentinel artifact. It could consume you.
And Richtofen, where is he? We know he contacted you.
Please. Please don't kill him. He is my son.
He's your what?
I don't think he knew he was raising a monster. Until it was too late.
We know this could possibly be a warning to simply avoid being trapped inside a Sentinel trial should we activate it, but we also know that it's quite possibly a new Sentinel artifact that we haven't seen before, and maybe it could have new powers again we haven't seen before and could be exclusive to this specific artifact, like the ability to consume someone and convert them into prima materia. The power would not even be entirely unheard of, as in the Voyage of Despair intro cutscene, we see people being morphed into prima materia that becomes the mystery box. They're fleshy and distorted figures still trying to pull away as you use it. If this was a warning about a trial, could the dig site Easter egg actually be a Sentinel trial just like the Chaos Maps Easter eggs? This would be an interesting throwback to Black Ops 4, as every single Chaos main quest was a Sentinel trial and they all have similar rules about their challenges. This would be so interesting to see a map that is not caused by Ethereum this time, that we haven't seen in so long. It would totally bend the rules of what we've seen in this current storyline so far, ignoring obviously what we saw in Chaos before we realized it was always part of the storyline. We could see an interesting reinterpretation of the trials as a modern main quest, and perhaps even find out more about the others who have tried the trial before. And you have to think that's basically what they did with, for example, the Archon's main quest in Vanguard Zombies. That entire thing was a trial. Could the Sentinel trial here be how the Bastard Sons died? And that's why they buried it here, to seal away the danger of it. I mean, on Ancient Evil, the trial got stuck. I wonder if that could have even happened here. And what exactly did Archibald find? I highly expect we see more of him in the dig site map. We've already seen characters like Medusa and Perseus be kept alive for way longer than the natural lifespan. Could it be the same may have happened to Archibald? Especially if he might be Brutus, but I have no idea. He could be an entirely different character, but I don't know why Trek thought to use a name that people are very well aware is related to Brutus. But anyways, or could the Bastard Sons even be alive? I doubt it. But anyways, that would be a way to bring the original crew back that's going to be happening at some point. And the thing is, if it is going to be available in the Warzone experience, I assume the Warzone experience will be set years after. We really have no idea on when storyline-wise it's going to be set, because apparently it's going to be integrated with COD 2025, but it was planned to be integrated with Black Ops 6, of course. So if it's with Black Ops 7 instead, is it going to be set around the era of Black Ops 7, which is rumored to be a Black Ops 2 sequel around 2035? Because then they would have had to drastically change their plans for the map, and maybe even the aesthetics and whatever lore they have planned to match literally 40 years later. So that seems a bit unlikely unless they just do 2 years of post-launch story where we just stay around the 90s as they initially intended for this game. Other questions I believe are valuable to pose about dig site, less related to the Sentinel artifact or the Bastard Sons, are also important to touch on here. Once our characters actually obtain it, what's next for everyone? Starting with Maya, while it's likely she accompanies Weaver and co to the nearby dig site, she has now accomplished her goals. In a special Maya-specific Easter egg and cutscene, she finds Franco hiding in the Citadel and defeats his right-hand man, turned into a HVT before cornering him in a room and killing Franco. After taking his life, she makes no clear signal that she intends to now pivot to revenge on Richtofen, or also holds him accountable for the death of Nathan. While that outcome is likely, it is also just as likely she feels satisfied, as her beef with Franco and the Syndicate extended prior to the death of Nathan, and she does say it was not for Nathan, it was for her when she kills him.
This is for me.
It's just as likely that, her revenge satisfied, the horrors of Citadel and dig site will prove enough and she will return home rather than travel across the planet. This would also allow for Ravenov, who is still there with the crew now, to take a spot in the playable zombies crew when they head to West Virginia. Speaking of heading to West Virginia, how will the crew get to the Mansion or Janus Towers maps that are going to be the final two ones afterwards? There are a few possibilities. That's a long trip by helicopter with Raptor 1, but it's not out of the question. I mean, they did go all the way from the Philippine Sea of Terminus across the globe to Europe in France. There's also the idea of teleportation. We've seen various teleportation technology already exist at relatively local scale, and magic teleports in Citadel and the Chaos maps too. Plus in Mauer, as Houghton and Forsaken, we see Samantha use her Dark Ether powers to send the strike team across the world in an instant. It's very possible that instead, likewise, we see the Sam AI use her teleportation powers to send the strike team where she needs them in an instant. But if that is the case, why didn't she do that in Terminus? Of course she needs the Sentinel artifact to get over to Avalon. It could simply be that she simply did not know in specific where to send the crew in Avalon, or maybe they needed to make some stops along the way for further research, but it could also be that she may not be teleporting them by will. It's possible that the crew are betrayed by Sam, and she sends them to the next map by force or anger, as we know she is lying to us on the cause of the outbreaks, and we're going to learn that Richtofen is actually trapped in the Dark Ether at her doing, and I think we're going to grow to empathize with her, as is signaled by Weaver clearly remembering the day that he burnt Richtofen's family in the ending when Kraft mentions Richtofen as his son. The parallels there. This could trap them there and force them to do what she wants with the Sentinel artifact. It could also be that Sam is currently not able to teleport the crew, but after acquiring and completing the Sentinel artifact trial and thereby getting what she needs, we somehow empower her to be even stronger, and this is what allows her to forcefully teleport us. If we end up back in Liberty Falls, it also opens up the opportunity for what we discussed in my Destroy Something Beautiful lyric breakdown. I will link the full video in the description, but the idea in short is this: could Sam use Prima Materia and the Sentinel artifact to morph herself into Aetherella and become the dimensional terror that she is incarnate? It definitely seems like Aetherella is based on Samantha Maxis, just like her.
Prepare to tremble before me, you hapless fools. I will drown this place in chaos. I can't overdo it. I have other dimensions to terrorize. This dreary little dimension deserves no mercy from me. Which interdimensional monster should I summon first? You wouldn't last a day in my dimension.
This would also explain why Maya would stick with the crew, as she wouldn't have a choice in this scenario. There's also the idea that we may even return to the crazy place, like we saw in the boss fight in Citadelle Des Morts, but go even deeper inside via dig sites. We know in Origins that deep inside the crazy place there was a rift to Agartha. Perhaps here we could find some rift that sends us back to West Virginia for the remaining two maps. For now, all we can do is speculate, and wait to see when Treyarch show us more of the dig site map. They've shown us this very early, way, so we might be in for a big wait until we hear anything more, and of course we're approaching Christmas, etc. But what do you think? Do you think an Origins pseudo remake or callback map is possible? Citadelle Des Morts felt very similar to the Eisendrache, but still managed to be unique and a fun experience. Could the same be done with a map like Origins? And how do you feel about the Bastard Sons potentially being the new version of the original crew for this Origins? I'll have a video, like I say, coming out soon on this topic, and leave your suggestions below if you want to see any more theories or discussion, or if there's anything you're confused about, and I will be sure to cover it when I get the chance. Black Ops 6 Zombies DLC 2, the dig site excavation map set very close by in Avalon, right next to Citadelle Des Morts. As soon as we got the Citadelle Des Morts ending, I posted a massive video talking about this map, the very first that was posted, going in depth mainly regarding the storyline stuff. But in this video, I want to focus more on gameplay related stuff, as well as there has been some leaks coming out since I posted that initial video that I think are very interesting to touch upon. Now, we are going to be waiting quite a while for DLC 2 because Citadel released so early, so honestly we might have to wait until March, potentially even April, so it is going to be a very long wait. I think it's good that Treyarch got Citadel out quickly so they can capitalize on the launch of the game, but at the same time, hopefully they fill this drought period well, and hopefully the Season 2 content, considering there's probably not going to be a map, is going to be substantial in terms of modes, as well as new perks, field upgrades, etc., whatever they have planned. Speaking of modes though, in the files of the game, Grief has of course been found, a guided mode, Turned returning. There is also a Deadlight mode, which is probably the red light, green light Squid Game crossover event that's going to be coming sometime in January. We will also be seeing Cranked and a mode called Panda, which I have no idea what they are. We don't know if any of these modes are cancelled either, but this can be substantial content to fill gaps between releases. Hopefully they are actually decent modes that have a replay value. Grief and Turn should be a lot of fun. I do wonder if any of these modes as well will have a storyline backstory to do with them, especially if they're just going to be releasing intel with new maps. I think it would be cool to have some intel drop as well with new modes, especially Grief, considering that could actually be a canon thing if we have different teams fighting each other. There has to be a reason for it. I would assume it would probably take place on Liberty Falls or some of the future maps coming to Liberty Falls. And yeah, it's very unclear if the classic mode is cut, or potentially this might be something saved for COD 2025 Zombies. When it first leaked, I and many others in the community got very excited because we thought it was going to be something on launch or coming a bit later. I still think there's a huge possibility it may release, especially since Jingle Hells seems to be testing some features that could be for a classic mode. But if Treyarch were to do a classic mode, they're going to have to completely restrip the mode and redesign all of the gameplay systems to accommodate for them. So it's a much bigger task than just switching a few buttons, turning some things off, turning some things on. And for that reason, it might be something that Treyarch are working on, but it's just nowhere near ready, or at least they want to do it eventually. And because all Call of Duties are now on a unified engine, it means that if this is something we see in COD 2025 Zombies, they may already be testing it in Black Ops 6 Zombies. I do think we will see it eventually. The files have constantly been getting updated for the classic mode, so whether it's this year or next year is unbeknownst, but I do think we will see it. I think we definitely jumped the gun getting excited though that it would be on release, but Treyarch have definitely seen all of the hype and buzz of people wanting it, so I do think it's something they want to do, and I think it's more so a matter of when. Now, I just hope it doesn't get cut. From the files of the game, it does seem like it's something being worked on because it's constantly being updated, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will ever release. But let's talk about Citadel specifically. So, as you know, we are going to this spot that we can see within the intel of the game, and now we have a much higher res image than the one I showcased in my last video, so we can get a good look at what is probably the spawn of the map, and there is a giant statue head in the ground that's being excavated, and this does look to be the owl from Citadelle Des Morts, so they're going to be further exploring his storyline a lot more in the following map. On screen and in the description, I will have a link to a video going over the full storyline of the owl thus far, and it seems like maybe the dig site is going to be his official tomb of it, and maybe he was trying to get the Sentinel artifact for great power, as that's going to be our purpose in heading to the dig site. In my prior video, I thought it could be the Janus god, but yes, it is definitely the owl from the looks of things. And obviously, we can see this spawn room in the Warzone map that I have pointed out in my last video, and we can get a look at it, but it's very small, as this is on a mound, a big hill, so most likely the majority of the map is going to be underground in these mining tunnels, and God knows what else is underneath this hill, as it is a point of interest in Warzone. And Treyarch have said that all of the Zombies maps are going to be original, so most likely only a tiny spot is going to be within the Warzone section, and you can't explore the underground section when it eventually comes to Warzone. But right next to the dig site is a remake of the Dig multiplayer map from Black Ops 2 that was also remade from World at War. However, I highly doubt this is going to be a part of the Zombies map. Yes, they are side by side, canonically wise and in the Warzone experience, and you'll probably be able to see the Dig multiplayer map in the Zombies map in the distance. However, I doubt you're going to physically play there unless they use it as a boss fight arena or something like that. But visually, they are going to look very similar just because they are both excavation sites, and the original Dig was set in Afghanistan, so of course we're in France here, a long way away. But I will be showing some gameplay of the Dig multiplayer map from Black Ops 2 so you can get an idea of what it looks like if you didn't play it back in the day, because it has been so long since we got it. Now, because it's going to be in Avalon, I assume it will come to multiplayer, whether it's this year or with Black Ops 7 in 2025. So yeah, this map is not an Origins remake like lots of people have been talking about, and like I talked about within my prior video, it's simply a thematic sequel to Origins. It's not the same layout, but it is a dig site set in France, so it's basically this universe's version of Origins, and in the boss fight arena on Citadelle Des Morts, the rock pillars underground do actually contain similar circular symbols to the crazy place from Origins. Now, since I posted that video, these circle symbols are not exclusive to the crazy place on Origins. They appear in many different instances where there is Dark Ether influence, such as on the MPD or the flower pots on Zetsubo no Shima, and I will be having a video talking more in depth about this as well, whether it's going to come out before or after this video. I will link it in the description once I do. So I was speculating in my last video how, considering that we're set very close to Origins in this new universe, this could be the new version of the crazy place in this new universe. Not a one-to-one remake, but thematically it could be similar. And in fact, in the boss fight arena itself, you do see lots of crevices and caves to where you can potentially explore further. So I do think that we're going to explore more of this underground section within the dig site map, considering it looks like we are going underground through these mines, and there's probably going to be a lot more that we just weren't able to access within the boss fight arena. And since I posted that video, it has been leaked in the files that apparently the textures of these circular symbols, these dark ether symbols that most likely the keepers and or apothecans use, which might be some sort of early form of, for example, humans trying to replicate the dark ether language, could be explored within this dig site map. So I very much think we're going to go more into this crazy place arena and learn more about that, and I'm really excited to see what further is lying beyond. I do wonder if there's going to be some sort of teleporter that takes you from the spawn area to underground, or even potentially deeper underground, considering the fact that we are only able to access this area in the boss fight because we get teleported there. So humans are not really supposed to access it, and yes, it is deep underground, and we will probably be heading underground, so maybe the mines do actually connect to it, but I'm thinking it's way deeper underground, so we may go way further down potentially. And I'm interested to see if we see a Tomb of the Four Bastards as well as the owl, considering there's a giant statue on it, and I'm very interested to learn a lot more about his backstory, and potentially they may tease further as to how the Four Bastards could be some sort of new version of the original characters like we've been speculating about on the channel. But speaking of those leaks about the circles, there have been some other leaks regarding the Wonder Weapon, and in the files of the game it's referencing a tip, a healing orb 1, 2 and 3, pack 2, 3, etc, and some images of these rocks have also been found. Now, there was also an image posted by Nanacoast of what looks to be a torch, and I've seen many people saying that this is the texture for the Wonder Weapon, but it's not. It's just a generic torch that's going to be on the map. In fact, I believe these torches can already be seen on Citadel and Terminus. It's the exact same texture. It's referencing Opal, which is the code name for DLC 2, as since I think Black Ops 4 Trek have just been codenaming all of their maps as just rocks, so there's no significance to the name Opal, but some assets already in the game share files with the upcoming Opal map, so that's why some stuff has already been appearing. For example, there's apparently going to be a church rooftop texture on Opal. It could also be that maybe just some textures used, but not necessarily for a church. It could be used for something else. Maybe this texture is shared with some of the textures they use for the church on Liberty Falls. But in terms of this Wonder Weapon, I've been speculating that maybe this could be the Origin staff, or at least a staff, especially if this is going to be the burial ground of the Four Bastard Sons, the Four Knights, similar to Origins, as well as the Owl. However, I don't think they're going to do 4 elemental wonder weapons back to back. That would seem a bit odd, but maybe we just get one staff, like the ice staff, the fire staff, because the rock that we've seen looks very similar, or potentially, and I think this would be a really cool idea, especially with all of the Merlin connections with Gabriel Craft, that what if it could actually be something like Merlin's staff, where it's some sort of combination of all of the different elements. I think that would be so cool for us to see. But really, we don't know exactly what this wonder weapon is going to be, but apparently in order to actually get the wonder weapon, it's going to involve something to do with healing orbs. I'm not exactly sure, and I'm not sure what these rocks are either. However, something interesting I noticed is some writing in blood on Citadelle Des Morts that might actually be teasing whatever these rocks are, because it says stones remember, so I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of memory stones on this map that might be involved in either the Pack-a-Punch and or the wonder weapon quest. Maybe you have to power them up or something like that, similar to the orbs on Buried. And this could be a soft introduction as to how Richtofen gets his family back. Maybe there are special rocks of magic that allow memories to be contained, similar to the Dark Ether orbs. But enough about the wonder weapon. Other things that have been found in the files is that there's apparently going to be a waterfall on the map, and this really reminds me of Ancient Evil. Already, this map sounds like Ancient Evil, because Ancient Evil was obviously a hidden version of Delphi underneath this fake Delphi. And if it has a waterfall on, and this map's going to be a lot more chaos themed, since hopefully it's going to be a proper Sentinel artifact trial. I mean, Citadelle Des Morts was a trial kind of, in trying to mimic and prove ourselves to the ghost of the Owl, pretending to be his sons, to be worthy, to get the amulet, which is probably going to act or serve as the key for the Sentinel artifact. Now, Craft describes in the ending cutscene that the Sentinel artifact is dangerous and it will consume you, so I'm really excited for this map and it going a lot more in the fantasy direction, because they went hard in Citadelle Des Morts, but I think this map's going to feel a lot more, even more than Citadel, like a Chaos Story map. So yeah, maybe the spawn isn't too wild, considering we've already gotten a preview of it and it doesn't seem that crazy aesthetically. It's just a generic dig site, apart from the giant head that's slapped there. But I think underground it's going to be wild, maybe like Indiana Jones, like you're going on an adventure as you traverse underground, and especially if it does in fact connect to this potential reiteration of the Origins crazy place. And there are references to ritual bowls as well with energy, so it does seem like there's going to be some kind of ritual you have to complete. Maybe this is to get Pack-a-Punch, maybe this is to do with these rocks, these memory stones, maybe this is how you get underground. And also apparently the ghoul from Citadelle Des Morts is returning on this map, so hopefully no manglers, and this makes complete sense since it's down the road from Citadel. It really shouldn't have any new enemy types, although gameplay wise I definitely want new enemy types, but I guess story wise it doesn't make as much sense. So I'm hoping there's going to be something new in addition to the ghoul, which by the way is just another name for the Doppelgast. That's how they're referred to in the files. So yeah, the Doppelgast will be back. Sorry if I just confuse you there. At least this is according to the files. Obviously all of this is subject to change and or being misinterpreted or leftover code. Now the Hellhounds have also leaked from the files of the game, so they may be on this map, but I think they would be better suited for Janus Towers, considering that's the Richtofen map, and they are coming as a U2's toy, which would suggest they might be coming soon. But then again, the Doppelgast was merch before the game even released and way before Citadel. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this map. Obviously we don't have too much to go on apart from the spawn of the map that we've gotten a preview of, and we've gotten some leaks as well. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be an Origins remake, but I think we're going to see some similar things, such as maybe something similar to the crazy place but not exactly, more sort of similar aesthetically to the boss fight on Citadel, and potentially we might get a staff or staffs. There have also been some upcoming Gobblegum leaks, so apparently there's going to be a new Gobblegum titled Absolutely Over There, but we don't know what it does. But the speculation right now is that it might teleport the player to the location they are looking at or something like that. You might be able to select where you want to teleport on the map instead of anywhere but there, taking you to a random place. There is also another one called Dead Drop, which is purple rarity, which again we don't really know what this does. I'm guessing it might just cause all of the zombies to drop dead. So yeah, that's all we know for now. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. In this video I want to discuss literally everything we know regarding the Mansion DLC map for Black Ops 6 Zombies, because obviously right now a lot of the discussion is on the next 2 map, the Dig Excavation site, that's going to be DLC 2. However, Treyarch have been teasing to us the future DLC maps beyond this one as well since the launch of the game, but I don't think there has been enough discussion in the community surrounding this map. So there are apparently 2 other maps coming, one being Mansion as well as Janus Towers, and I'm going to make a whole separate video talking just about Janus Towers as well. So all of these maps were actually leaked before the game even released from the Steam strings, but judging from the fact that day one on launch, Trek were already teasing these maps, it makes me feel less bad about these leaking because they planned on teasing them anyway, so it didn't really give us that much of a heads up than we would have received anyways. So unless Trek have any more surprises planned or some survival maps or something like that, it does seem like we're just getting the standard 4 DLC round-based maps in its post-launch cycle, but they do have lots of modes planned that'll hopefully release sporadically between these main map releases. I assume there would have probably been more planned if COD 2025 Zombies wasn't on the horizon next year, because they're having to space out a lot of content over 2 whole games, and that's a lot of work. So in a scenario where that game might have been released at a later point, maybe we could have seen more maps for this game. But it is likely we will probably see DLC 3 and DLC 4, whether it be this mansion map or the Janus Towers map, in Season 4/Season 4.5 in around July, and probably will then get Season 6 in September with DLC 4. Now, because we know that the original crew are apparently going to be returning at the end of this game in some way, I'm guessing that's going to be the cliffhanger at the end of the game, and it's unfortunate that that got spoiled, but they'll probably want to have that map released before the COD 2025 Zombies marketing can really deeply ensue. But enough with that tangent, back on topic regarding the mansion map itself. Whilst we do not know this for sure, it does seem to be the mansion that we see in the Liberty Falls intro cutscene and makes complete sense. And we actually have quite a lot of information already in the game to do with this map, which I'm going to break down. And the reason why it really makes sense to be this mansion is because when Liberty Falls was first revealed and we got this cutscene, everyone was so hyped to be playing as Richtofen, to see Richtofen in some capacity on the map, as well as be able to play in this mansion itself. However, then Liberty Falls has released and it's not a physical part of the map, and a lot of people were saying this feels like misleading marketing, but at the end of the day, this was just storyline setup, and we are going to be seeing the map, it's just coming at a later point instead. So really, when we look at this cutscene, it's basically the intro cutscene for the mansion map, as opposed to Liberty Falls, even though the SAM AI creates the outbreak, which causes both the Liberty Falls and Terminus 1 to ensue. It really is more so set up for this mansion map, and it also has me wondering what the intro cutscene is going to be for this mansion map, because this one already sets up the map perfectly. Now, we do actually know that Blanchard is camped out in the mansion as he's communicating to us on Liberty Falls, and when he interviews Miller as a child who managed to escape days later, he does so in the mansion. So it seems like he is managing to survive. The zombie outbreak there is not contained, and it is continuing, and that's why we are going to be going back there. Now, personally, I previously thought that this map would be the DLC 4 map. However, I'm more so thinking now that it's probably going to be DLC 3. Of course, I could be wrong about that, and this could be the DLC finale map, but I'm now thinking that'll be Janus Towers instead, which I'll dive more so in a future video when I talk more about Janus Towers. But let's go over everything we know regarding Mansion, because we actually have some intel in the game right now that talks about this map from Blanchard, so I'm going to play that for you.
Chief of Security, John Blanchard. Inspected construction today. Project's really coming together, but I keep thinking about how my granddad wouldn't take me to Fort Washita when I was a kid. I wanted to do their bullshit ghost tour for Halloween. Sounded like dumb fun. Sorry, Johnny, that place is bad medicine. Granddad actually used those words, and he meant it. Now I'm starting to think the same thing might be true about the mansion. I'd like to believe Josiah Shem didn't know what he was doing when he had his flock build the place. If he did, then he got what he deserved. Shem's folly. Ain't that the truth? Every owner after him, captains of industry, gangsters, you name it, all their money and power couldn't save them. Shit like that doesn't just happen without other forces at work. Granddad knew that. But that's where the director wants to bunk down. And I can't talk him out of it. So my job's making sure he doesn't end up like everyone else who moved into the murder mansion. Lucky me.
So a lot of people have been referring to this mansion as a haunted mansion because people are disappearing and Richtofen doesn't want people to know about it. But I'm not sure if this necessarily means something spiritual or ghosts. I think people are disappearing probably because of the Samantha Maxis AI. I do actually have a video coming out probably before this video goes live that'll be linked on screen and in the description where I talk about how the Sam AI is being powered. And my theory is that a copy was made of Samantha Maxis at a certain point in her past. However, I think the powers she has are actually being emboldened by Zykov the Forsaken, who I think might be in the core, or the crystals of him might be in the core of the containment chamber, explaining why the containment chamber looks so similar to the one that Zykov was captured in at the end of Forsaken. And Richtofen has built this underground laboratory underneath the mansion that you have to take an elevator down to with security ID. But I think over time, the Sam AI has been using her Dark Ether powers and she's been zipping people into the Dark Ether. I think she's been trying to escape for a long time, and that's why in the Liberty Falls intro cutscene, Richtofen has the Wunderwaffe by his bed frame, and he doesn't seem that shocked that Sam has broken free from containment because he was expecting this day to come, because I think things have been moving erratically for a while, and I think he had the Sam AI made because he was trying to get a snapshot of her memory of the day when her and Weaver contributed to the death of his family, and he might be trying to find a way to either recreate that moment or go back to that moment or just find out more about the events of that day from the Sam AI. But I think he's also been using the Sam AI with the combined power of Zykov and the Dark Ether powers to actually be a bridge into the Dark Ether so he can move crystals in and out to power his work and research, all with the ultimate goal to, I think, restore his family. And we learn from this intel from Blanchard that he has not been sleeping well as well. Obviously, he's been having nightmares about the death of his family, and he's become absolutely obsessed with trying to return them. Now, what's more is that there is a computer monitor on Terminus which actually shows two different Janus facilities as being offline, one being the Janus Towers and one being the mansion site. Now, I don't know why they're listed as offline. I think this could be because the zombie outbreaks happened, which might have just broken the mainframes and the electricity sources potentially. So that could be what we have to do on the map. We have to turn on power first, probably. But it means that both of these facilities are probably not able to communicate with the outside world. And the thing is, you can actually see both the Janus Towers as well as the mansion map right outside of Liberty Falls. The Janus Towers are very visible because you can obviously clearly just see them in the distance, but the mansion you can see as well, which is above the hill behind the church, but it's a lot more visible if you have a chopper gunner. You can literally just see it right there on the hill. So it's right next to Liberty Falls. So it does seem like we're getting at least 3 maps set in Liberty Falls. I don't think this is a big deal though, because I think aesthetically they're going to be very different. Obviously, this mansion map is going to be aesthetically very different to the town of Liberty Falls, and it's also going to be a bit further after the outbreak, so more destruction would have taken place. And also the Janus Towers, we do not know what's going on in there. There's probably some crazy experiments, and these towers look absolutely massive. So I think that's going to be more of an industrial map. I think this mansion map might be a good stark contrast between the sort of more magical stuff of the Chaos story as well as the more Dark Ether related stuff, and then maybe when we go to Janus Towers, that'll be a more hard sci-fi map to close out the DLC. And the reason why I think we might be going to mansion next is because I was thinking about it, and I think the purpose of the mansion map is clearly probably going to be trying to rescue Richtofen, because I think it's inevitable. He has been sent into the Dark Ether by the Sam AI, and the Sam AI is lying to us. She clearly has her own personal agenda with the Sentinel artifact that we do not know yet, and I think my theory is that she wants to use the Sentinel artifact to potentially get a physical body. That seems like an obvious thing that an artificial intelligence would want to do, and especially if she doesn't have a physical body right now and Zykov might be actually inside the chamber, then she would want to break free from that, and maybe she could use Aetherella on Liberty Falls to do so. So maybe we're going to see Aetherella on this mansion map, or maybe even the Janus Towers map. Considering they're set so close, it would make sense that that could be her goal. Now obviously we're heading to the dig site in Avalon next in France, so somehow we need to get all the way back to Liberty Falls. So I feel like the twist on the dig site map's probably going to be that we're going to find out that the Sam AI is lying to us, whether that happens during the quest or right at the end. And I think she might then teleport us back to Liberty Falls, because that's the location we need to go next, or maybe she needs us to go there. Now maybe we won't find out she's lying to us just yet. Maybe that's then going to happen on the mansion map. However, I think we're going to get more suspicious, because already Carver is suspicious that she is lying, and the other crew are a bit suspicious as to why the outbreaks are happening, because she has been causing them. Now obviously Samantha Maxis herself had teleportation abilities, which is how she teleported the characters from Mauer to Toten at the ending, and she also brought them over to Ukraine for the Forsaken map. So it would make sense that she has similar abilities, but I think she didn't use them to bring the characters from Terminus over to Citadelle Des Morts because she probably didn't want to give away that she's actually the reason for the outbreaks. But she might also use these powers by accident because Samantha Maxis was not properly in control of her powers. She caused the outbreak at Firebase C accidentally when she was suffering mental distress, and it could be a similar case with the Sam AI. Maybe we're catching on to her that she's lying and she gets really angry and then teleports us away to where we need to be or where she needs us to be, because like I say, I think she needs a physical body, which might require going back to Liberty Falls where her physical containment chamber is, as well as if she needs Aetherella. And I do think the purpose of the mansion quest is going to be us trying to break and rescue Richtofen from the Dark Aether, because it's bound to happen eventually. It's so weird that they just sort of dangled Richtofen in our face right at the start of the storyline. It's surely going to be something that needs to be followed up on later. A lot of people were expecting, with the ending of Forsaken and Richtofen getting revealed, that he would be there front and center in the storyline of Black Ops 6 Zombies, but unfortunately Trek is saving that for a later point. So I just really hope that he does become a playable character. I don't think he'll be a playable character on Mansion, or maybe he's going to be an operator reward if you do the Easter egg, but to be honest, I feel like they wouldn't do that because they would rather sell him as a bundle in the store. I think he definitely needs to be a playable character, and this is part of the reason now why I'm thinking that the Mansion map might not be the final map and Janus Towers could be as well, because my current theory right now is during the main quest we're going to be trying to rescue Richtofen, and then maybe if we are successful by the end of the Easter egg, he could then either be a bonus operator, or maybe then he's going to join us as a playable character on the final map, and I think that would be perfect. I just really hope that Treyarch are not thinking that they need to save Richtofen for COD 2025 Zombies, because we know that the full original characters are all going to be returning as playable characters. I'm just praying that they give him as a playable character in this game as well, and I really think they should have had him as an operator in Cold War as well. They really would make a lot of money, and also it does seem like the original characters in COD 2025 Zombies might be new iterations we've never seen before of all of the characters, so potentially even Richtofen as well. So we might be playing as a completely different version of Richtofen than this Janus version, and I think this Janus version is such a unique version of Richtofen that if he never becomes a playable character to explore his personality more, it's going to be a really strong missed opportunity. And I think the reason why we're going to help Richtofen and side with him, because all of the characters right now want him dead. I mean, Weaver won't shut up about how much he wants Richtofen dead, is because I think they will grow to empathize and understand where Richtofen is coming from. Richtofen has obviously done a lot of bad in the storyline, at least his Janus self, but from what we've learned from Gabriel Kraft on Citadelle Des Morts, in him adopting Eddie, he performed MK Ultra experiments to try and rid him of his nightmares of the ether, so he experienced extreme trauma and abuse in his childhood, and then Weaver and Sam failed an assassination attempt which led to the death of his family, so really they're to blame for leading him on this dark path, unless he was up to dark stuff even before the death of his family, which we currently don't know. Maybe we're going to find out about it on the dig site map. Then right now we don't know as to him doing anything wrong before his family dying, and yes, obviously your family dying doesn't excuse you from doing horrible things, but it does at least make sense of it in some way, and it makes sense as to why he wanted to get revenge on Weaver and Sam, as to why he did all of the experiments on Sam to unlock her powers. And from the Citadelle Des Morts ending, Weaver clearly is reminiscing on the day he killed his family when Kraft mentions he's his son, and he's feeling empathetic and realizing, oh wait, this horrible thing I tried to do on someone was someone's son, someone that has a family who people care about. So I'm wondering if the twist could be on this Mansion map is that Richtofen might not be as evil as we once suspected. You know, maybe he's not going to be totally good. No one is in this storyline. It's not black and white. But as far as we're aware, Weaver was given the intel to kill Richtofen from Samantha Maxis, but we don't know why. And that's been the big question right now. So Weaver could have just been acting on the intel of Samantha Maxis and could have been basically a bystander in this. He could have just gotten mixed up in this situation, but it really could have all been Samantha's fault. And we don't know as well if Samantha wanted to target Richtofen intentionally to sabotage him because she was jealous that only Richtofen was adopted by Kraft and she had to remain alone in the orphanage in Germany when they were supposed to go into this new universe and begin new lives together. So she could have been out for revenge out of love, not necessarily romantic, but toxic love. Destroy something beautiful. Or maybe Samantha and Weaver were both acting on the orders of some other agenda, whether it be the CIA or some sort of mysterious force ordering them to do so. But I hope they don't go that route. I think it would be more interesting that Samantha actually had an evil agenda all along and something nefarious than them just getting mixed up in a wrong situation, because I think it's a more interesting interesting dynamic to have Richtofen versus Samantha, like it's always been in the storyline, as opposed to them getting mixed up in the wrong situation. So I think this could be how we grow to empathize with Richtofen. If on the map we begin talking to Richtofen, maybe he's going to be the person that we speak to during the Easter egg. He could be communicating to us through the dark ether somehow. Maybe at this point it's just an extreme dark ether weak spot and Richtofen's able to speak to us through the veil and whisper to us, and he could have this weird mystic voice as he's in the dark ether, and then he'll be cluing us in about everything that happened and confront Weaver head on, and maybe Weaver's going to be like, I'm sorry. In the end, he might grow to empathize and cry and just be so emotional about the horrible things he did to his family. And maybe it's going to be revealed that it was really Samantha Maxis' fault, and then Richtofen will grow to hate Weaver less if he can understand that. And maybe Weaver will then understand why Richtofen wanted Weaver to suffer on Terminus, and why Richtofen did all of these horrible acts. And he even spared him from being assassinated, part of Operation Charybdis, although I do think that was partially because he wanted him to suffer more and thought death would have been an easy way out. But nevertheless, as well, the other characters do not know about Richtofen's history. As far as we're aware, they do not know that Weaver tried to assassinate him. They do not know that Weaver contributed to the death of his family. So when they learn that, they too may grow to empathize, and they may already be empathizing with him after learning what Kraft did to him as a child. Gray says in the Citadel ending that Kraft might have not known how much of a monster Richtofen was until it was too late, but they both did horrible things, and Kraft clearly contributed towards Richtofen becoming a monster. So I do think we're going to help Richtofen during the Easter egg, and hopefully we are successful by the end of it in actually rescuing him. And part of the reason we may be helping him might not just be out of empathy as well, it could actually be because there might be a greater threat out there that we have to deal with first, such as the Sam AI. It might be revealed that the Sam AI might be the true antagonist of the game, and maybe we're going to have to fight her as a boss fight, either as the final boss fight on the mansion map or maybe the Janus Towers map. Now obviously the Sam AI is contained in the containment chamber underneath the mansion, so maybe the boss fight will actually be similar to Zetsubo no Shima, where we have to unlock the elevator and take it down and then fight this Sophia, and then I'm wondering if she might then manage to escape the Sophia and go into the Ether Ella, and maybe that could then set up the boss fight for Janus Towers or something like that. That's just one idea I have, but I do think the main quest will be us trying to get down to the underground laboratory. It just makes sense. Now also, the Sam AI broke Richtofen's Wunderwaffe in the intro cutscene, so it's bound to be the wonder weapon on this map because it's already been leaked in the files, so I think this is going to be the wonder weapon for the map. Maybe we're going to have to try and repair it, and also we do not have access to the elevator because it's locked off for Richtofen. However, if Richtofen is communicating to us, he might be trying to teach us on how to hack into the mainframe. Maybe he's also going to be teaching us into how to rebuild the Wunderwaffe, and maybe it's going to have slightly different abilities to its original, considering the lights broke and we're going to have to mend the Tesla coils. I think it would be good to get a new iteration of the Wunderwaffe instead of just getting the same one over and over again. So I really think that's going to be the point of the Easter egg, and I think the Sam AI could be the final boss, but maybe we fail in properly defeating her, like say maybe she goes into Etherella or something like that, which can then lead into the Janus Towers map. And if we are successful in rescuing Richthofen as well, it could lead into the Janus Towers map where it's Richthofen versus Samantha like it always has been, although it's not the real Samantha of course, because there are 3 giant towers, and this just really reminds me of the polarization towers from Black Ops 2, and I've made prior videos talking about how this storyline really does seem to be mirroring the Black Ops 2 storyline, but a lot of the roles are reversed between Richthofen and Samantha, so maybe they're going to face off between powering these towers, because maybe they're used to harness the dark ether. Richthofen might be trying to rescue his family, the Sam AI could be trying to get a physical body, or maybe something else. Maybe she's even being controlled by some sort of old one or higher power, whether it be the Shadow Smiths or something like that, because the Shadow Smiths are going to have to tie into the storyline by the end at some point, judging from the ending of Modern Warfare Zombies. But I don't think they're going to be the big bad in this game. I think they will be the big bad for COD 2025 Zombies, as it's rumored there's going to be a new villain that's trying to restore the multiverse and the original character's essence. So I think that's going to be the thing that's safe for that game. However, I think they'll be introduced at the end in a cliffhanger. So maybe we're successful in stopping the Sam AI, maybe Richthofen even might get a happy ending, but then somehow stuff is going to have to tie into Ava Janssen. I think there's going to be some sort of time jump or something like that, where we learn why Ava Janssen is born. But speaking of the Modern Warfare Zombies ending, this also ties into the Mansion DLC map, because in the mirror where Ava is taken by, in the background, it is the mansion from this map. It's literally exactly the same. If you compare them side by side, it's very clearly the mansion. So Ava gets taken into the dark ether, just like Richthofen was taken into the dark ether by the Shadow Smiths, setting up COD 2025 Zombies for potentially a fully dark ether game game, but set after 2021 in the future. Hopefully from now on we don't start jumping about in time eras and we can just move forward linearly so things don't get confusing, like having Cold War, then jumping back to the past with Vanguard, then going into the future, then coming back with Black Ops 6. Everything just needs to move forward from now on, so I think going to after the events of Modern Warfare Zombies makes sense, and I think is what is being set up. But what this means is that maybe Liberty Falls and maybe these points of interest such as the town itself, the mansion, Janus Towers, and maybe some other areas around could actually make up some large map, some sort of Outbreak experience or something like that. I mean, the leaks have stated that there's going to be some sort of transit-like map with some sort of transport system similar to the bus, and we know that there is a giant train track going around Liberty Falls, so maybe this could be the transport system on the map, and we could play on the full Harper's Ferry, and Ava Jansen could be involved in that storyline as well as the original characters, as well as potentially the Requiem heads, all in the Dark Ether, because I really do think it could be a fully Dark Ether game. Considering from the leaks, it does sound like they might be the souls of the original characters trapped in the Dark Ether, and we know that the Requiem heads sacrificed themselves to an Ethereum device, and this could be because they put their essence inside the Dark Ether, and they may be able to fight alongside the original crew. So I'm very interested to learn how the thing with Ava Jansen ties into things, and it is actually the exact same mirror as well from Richtofen's bedroom in the mansion, so that clearly has big significance. It kind of could act like a sentinel artifact or a gateway. Maybe there's just so much significance with this mirror, and it's been kept in this mansion all of these years. Potentially he has been looking in it a lot, and that sadness might have given it power. And obviously the sentinel artifact is going to be used at the end of the storyline as well, so I'm wondering how that ties into everything. Now, the other big thing we know about this mansion map is regarding intel on Terminus. So there's a document which says recruitment from departments within Terminus Island is preferable. If necessary, staff transfer from mansion site has been authorized. However, I would rather not have those temporal flux get involved in the research being carried out by either Dark Ether Energies or biotech. They're already at a funding advantage even without scalping our results. So Richthofen has two divisions for Project Janus. There's a temporal flux division, which is about time travel. It seems like Richthofen is trying to do time travel again and mess up the universe. It's probably because he wants to, or has been attempting to, go back to the day his family died to restore them. That's my theory anyways. And then he has the bio division, which is probably trying to create a physical clone of his family. So he's trying two different methods, so he has the best chance of restoring them. But Modi failed in recreating a living organism from one sample of DNA. So most likely that sample of DNA was actually from his family, and she failed at that probably. Or maybe he was just testing on other subjects to eventually lead to tests to bring back his family. But we know that Terminus was involved in the bio division of Janus, so that means that the mansion and or the Janus Towers are probably the temporal flux division. And I think that's interesting, and that could set up to even some weird time travel related stuff. Maybe this is even where Ava Jansen eventually gets birthed. It's a bit unclear how Ava's birth will tie into everything. I do think the storyline is going to be wrapped up very, very quickly, time frame wise, and that's why I think we'll probably get a cliffhanger at the end where we learn of the Shadowsmiths as being the next threat for COD 2025 zombies, and then maybe we get a time skip where we learn that the Requiem heads are dying due to their Ethereum exposure. We learn they have to kill themselves to create some sort of lock to go inside of the Dark Ether to fight the Shadowsmiths from within. Their souls could be fighting them. And I do think on this mansion map we're going to be hearing from Blanchard as well. He might be even trying to help us rescue Richthofen. I mean, Richthofen did actually save him in the Liberty Falls intro cutscene, so he owes a debt to him, and Blanchard is just a good guy that I think he would want to help Richthofen, even if he likes him or not. I think he's just out to help everyone. Now, the other mention of the mansion map is actually Owen Guthrie's note, who obviously turns into Patient 13, in the boat on Terminus, and he was researching into everything Janus related so that he could break it to the news in the public. And upon doing so, he learned of the mansion site. He specifically wrote what is mansion and what are the towers. So he stumbled upon them. So there are many teasers in the game for these DLC maps, and I'm sure with the dig site map, there's going to be a lot more clues. And I think because every single map so far has been revealing the next map, I think at the end it's going to reveal what the following one will be. We'll know concretely then if it's Janus Towers or mansion as the next one. Now, this point does list Janus Towers as being further further away from West Virginia. I think this is just a mistake with the markings on the map, and I don't think it's really a big deal. So now we've gotten all of the story stuff out of the way, I want to talk more about gameplay stuff. So like I said, the Wunderwaffe is probably going to be the wonder weapon, but what in terms of the map's layout and stuff like that? Well, in terms of the mansion is actually huge, and it is based off of Harper's Ferry's abandoned Hilltop House Hotel, or ex-hotel. And this makes sense because Ava Jansen, when she was visiting this mansion, it was a hotel. So I think Trek have taken that inspiration from the real world. Now, obviously, in 1991, Janus are using it as a base of operations, especially Richthofen. Richthofen is living in this mansion. It's his base of operations, and he is not sleeping well. He's not leaving. He's getting extremely pale because he's become so obsessed with trying to restore his family, and he's barely being seen by the other Janus staff. He's being very secretive and keeping to himself. But I think after the events of Black Ops 6 Zombies, Janus probably gets shut down or at least scaled back a lot, depending on whatever happens with Richthofen, whether he restores his family or not. I am praying that he gets a happy ending, whether you think he deserves it or not. The only way to break a cycle of suffering is happiness at the end of the day, so I think it would be a nice ending. But regardless, I think after Janus no longer uses this mansion, it eventually gets converted into a hotel years later. But the thing is, from the intro cutscene, the mansion looks huge, so we get a look at all of the areas we could be exploring. It's so huge, Richthofen literally has a giant T-Rex skeleton within it. So most likely, when he was digging these underground tunnels to build the containment chamber underground and its facility, he probably found this skeleton. That's all I can think of, and maybe he's found loads of other fossils and artifacts potentially underground that he has in this mansion. It would be so cool, but like I say, I think the map is going to be a lot more destroyed than we see in the cutscene because more time will have passed since the outbreak initially ensued. And maybe we can even go outside of the mansion and into the garden itself. Maybe in the spawn, we're actually going to be inside the garden. I do hope it's not just the mansion, although I think it would make for an interesting map because it would feel very claustrophobic if they just do a solely indoors map. And judging from the intro cutscene, it doesn't look like there is great space to train or anything like that, so it would be good to have a mansion. And speaking of the ghost related stuff as well, whilst it does seem like the ghost aspects and the people disappearing is probably related to Sam, and people have also been hearing voices coming from the underground and the containment chamber that they believe to be a woman, potentially Samantha Maxis, although I think it's actually the Sam AI. I think they may be giving a more scientific explanation to these more mystical, chaos-related fantasy stuff, but we'll have to wait and see regarding that. But I want to talk more about the real-life location of the Hilltop House Hotel, because we'll be right on top of the hill, which means that when we look out the windows, or if we can go outside the map, we'll probably see the town of Liberty Falls just down below, similar to how if you look up from Liberty Falls, you can see the mansion behind. I think that gives an interesting dynamic for the map. And I do hope they do have some ghost Easter eggs or something like that on the map, because Harper's Ferry is strongly known for hauntings. In fact, there's been lots of haunting stories from the Hilltop House Hotel itself, and a lot of us were expecting them to be involved in side Easter eggs on Liberty Falls, but unfortunately they're not. So I think, considering we're going back to Liberty Falls, they need to reference these real-life ghost stories on this map or the next. So yeah, if you actually compare the real-life Hilltop House Hotel to the mansion, they do look very similar. In a similar way to the Liberty Falls Church is very similar, and a lot of the layout of Liberty Falls is very similar to Harper's Ferry in real life. In fact, it has the bridge out in the distance, it has the track going around the map as well. So I think looking at some real-life footage of the Hilltop House Hotel can give you a bit of an insight into the real-life location, but the thing is, it's abandoned in real life. It used to be a hotel, but it's no longer functional. So if we do see this mansion again, if this is where Ava was taken into the mirror, I do wonder if we're going to learn some of the backstory between the mansion from the 90s into the 2020s or even the 2030s, depending on when COD 2025 Zombies is set. Maybe during that period it was abandoned to coincide with the real world, and then maybe it got converted or bought out and refurbished back to a functioning hotel again when Ava was then staying there. As well as she seems to believe that Samantha Maxis is the one who pulls her in.
Are you there? Ava!
Now, we don't know if that's just a clone of Samantha Maxis. It could even be the Sam AI if she manages to restore a physical body for herself, or maybe this is the real Samantha Maxis trapped in the dark ether. Now, obviously, there's recasting concerns with Julie Nathanson, so I'm just hoping that if they do plan to have the real Samantha Maxis return at some point, that doesn't get cancelled or she gets killed off because of those concerns, if they can't get her original voice actor back, because she really is such a staple of who Samantha is. She's been there since the beginning of the story. But Ava hears lots of voices when she is pulled in, in. There's many different voices whispering to her, so I wonder if they could even be the whispers of the souls of the other Requiem heads, considering she did hallucinate before of the other Requiem heads as zombies as well. So it seems like their souls could be there in the Dark Ether, and I really wonder how the Sentinel R fight's going to tie in as well. And even the arm that pulls her in does seem to be the same purple jumper that Samantha was wearing when she was sent into the Dark Ether, so it could really be the real Samantha Maxis, but she may be a lot more corrupted and evil now, potentially even the new Archon or a powerful Elder God in the Dark Ether from being in there for so long. And I am just so interested to see how the other crew reacts when they learn what Weaver did, and I'm just so interested to see Richtofen and Weaver potentially talking it out with each other about this day. This could be literally the most emotional cutscene or dialogue we've ever seen since the Blood of the Dead ending, where Richtofen had to sacrifice his other self's life. We could see Richtofen and Weaver both crying and being so emotional towards each other, and I really do think this is going to be the trauma dump map, where Richtofen is basically just going to be going off on one, giving us so much dialogue, filling us in on his entire backstory, filling in all of those gaps, because I think Digsight will learn more about Kraft and will learn some more things about what happened during Richtofen's childhood, but I think it's good that we are probably going to hear it firsthand from Richtofen and him talking directly to us as opposed to it just being in the intel. I think that's the best way to unveil this information. He can give a full recount of his life from coming into the new universe, all of the trauma he experienced with MK Ultra, the trauma of the memories of the Etherverse, how much he fears the Dark Ether returning, then him managing to escape that life, falling out with Kraft because of the brainwashing, then him trying to build a new life, build a family like he wanted, and then it all being destroyed by Weaver and Sam. And I think the other characters may not view him as a monster anymore. They might still think what he's done is wrong, and they might still feel angry somewhat as to why he locks them all up and what he did, but they're really going to understand that this is a broken soul, a soul who needs help, and sometimes you need to help the worst people, because like I say, maybe that can be the only way the cycle is broken, Herr Doctor. And maybe there's going to be an interesting dynamic as well, where some of the crew want to help Richtofen, but some might still want him dead. For example, I do think Weaver will definitely turn to empathize with him, considering he's the one who literally killed his family, so it makes sense. And potentially maybe Greywood, she just seems like an empathetic person, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe she's still going to be against him, considering what he did to Sam and them having a love interest. She might not be able to let that slide. I do think Maya will still want Richtofen dead for what happened to her brother, but she already got revenge on Franco. She's less connected to Richtofen than the rest of the characters, though. She never worked at Requiem, so she has less personal involvement, so I suspect she's going to be the one to care least about him, but it could be interesting. I wonder if we could even get alternative Easter eggs. I don't think this is going to happen, but it would be so cool to have alternative endings, one where you side with Richtofen, one where you're against him, but only one is canon, similar to Buried. Maybe that could even be the case on the Janus Towers map, or even this map, one where you side with the Sam AI, or one where you side with Richtofen. But maybe Richtofen, considering he's in the Dark Ether, he's going to warn us of the greater threat of the Shadowsmiths or whatever darkness lies beyond, because I think we might have to team up, even if we don't necessarily agree with Richtofen, for a greater evil. It's also very interesting, the last words we heard of Richtofen as a child of Eddie was he wishes the heroes in his and Sam's stories were real.
I wish the heroes in our stories were real, Sam.
I know what you mean. But we will make everything okay.
And considering that the intel references back to the fact that Eddie didn't get his turn and he was having nightmares about that.
I didn't even get my turn.
He wakes drenched in sweat, screaming that it's his turn.
And now we know that the original characters are returning. It's a very interesting parallel, considering that's the last we heard of him, and now the original characters are returning. He's getting his turn, albeit not exactly in the way he wanted, and the original characters are returning, but I don't know if he wants the original characters to come back, or whether he's actually against that, because he has all of the memories of the Ether. He knows the perils that come with the original characters, and the tragedy that comes to the overall universe when it's fractured by their existence, their very existence. So he might not want that cycle of trauma to repeat, and he might not want the Dark Ether to begin fragmenting once again and bleeding into our world and corrupting it. Because if the original crew return, it will mark a whole new sense of doom of the Dark Ether story. This will be the biggest calamity yet. Even though we're happy to see them back, their souls will be dragged out of death for their return, and they will feel great pain as they did in the endless cycle they were stuck in before, and they escaped it, so it will be very traumatic if they get dragged back into that endless suffering again. And I really don't think Richtofen would want that, but only time will tell. And the Hellhounds will apparently be coming to the game at some point, as they are in the files, and there's even a U2's toy being sold, which would suggest they're coming soon. So if they don't come sooner on the dig site map, then I think Mansion would be perfect if it is a Richtofen map to see the return of the Hellhounds, especially if it's Richtofen versus Samantha, which is literally the origins for the Hellhounds. I think it would be interesting as well if the Hellhounds return and they're actually not so fluffy, because we know that Grey apparently looks after it after Samantha goes in the Dark Ether, and her dog does seem to resemble the model for the Hellhounds in Modern Warfare Zombies, suggesting something happens there, so this could be when it's explored, if it's been experimented on or being sent into the Dark Ether by Richtofen, mirroring the original storyline of Fluffy. And yeah, maybe the map is not just going to be the mansion, but the underground facility where the Sam AI is, but I have a strong suspicion that'll be the boss fight arena, and that's going to be the point of the Easter egg and trying to access that elevator, because it's not going to be easy. We need to gain access to it somehow, whether that be hacking or whether trying to do something with Richtofen, or maybe we even have to restore Richtofen to access the facility. But Richtofen was taken into the Dark Ether whilst going down to the underground place, so maybe that's where he's being held, but in the Dark Ether version of the mansion. Also, speaking of Richtofen in the Dark Ether, another good thing to point out is what has he been doing during his time in the Dark Ether? How has he been managing to survive as well and battle the undead, because he lost his Wunderwaffe, so he has no weapon. Now obviously he's very much equipped with the Dark Ether, considering the Ether story and him having all of those memories, and he was very equipped in the intro cutscene at fighting off the undead, but this is going to be a whole different story. As far as we're aware, he's never been in the Dark Ether now in this new universe, and also is he going to corrupt in a similar way to when Samantha Maxis was sent in on Firebase C, which by the way was under Richtofen's orders to Dr. Peck. Will he also gain ethereal powers similar to Samantha Maxis, so if we do bring him back out again, he could have powers? That's another good point to bring up. Will he also suffer amnesia from being in the Dark Ether? Will it affect his memories? The Richtofen we see when he comes out might not be the same Richtofen we saw in the intro cutscene. He could be a very changed person, and we don't know of course how much time will have passed between Mansion and Liberty Falls, but I suspect it's been a lot of time, and time passes a lot slower in the Dark Ether, so even if it has just been a matter of months or even less, it could have potentially been way longer for him, even potentially years, depending on how much time has passed, so he could end up being a very changed person. But I wonder whilst he's in the Dark Ether if he does find the essence of his family, considering we've been speculating that Samuel could actually be the red orb we see in the second Outbreak quest that apparently is being protected by Mr. Peaks, keeping him safe in his hat. Maybe he's going to stumble along that, and that could be the way he then wants to restore his family. If he learns their souls actually still exist in the Dark Ether in some capacity, then maybe on the Janus Towers map he could try and power these polarization devices to restore them, or use the Sentinel artifact to restore them, or something along those lines. But that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. It has been a very rambly one. I probably needed a script for this. There's a lot to talk about. We already know so much about this map, and like I say, with the dig site map we will learn even more regarding this map and more concrete information as to where we're heading next. But I do think it's going to be the next one after dig site, and then we'll head to Janus Towers. But I'll be making a separate video about Janus Towers as well, probably just as rambly as this one, but hopefully nevertheless this has given you a good insight. And what do you think of the map being based on the Hilltop House Hotel in real life? They do look very similar as well, comparing them. In this video, I want to talk about everything we know so far regarding the Janus Towers DLC map that we're going to see at some point inside of Black Ops 6 Zombies. So recently I've posted a video going over everything we know regarding the Mansion DLC map, which seems to be the Liberty Falls intro cutscene where Richtofen has been hanging out, because obviously all of the focus right now is on DLC 2, the next map, Dig Site in Avalon. However, since the game has launched, Trek have actually been teasing all of the future DLC maps within the game, so they are not being shy about them whatsoever at all. Now obviously they did a leak before the game actually released, so we've had a good idea of what the lineup would be, but it didn't really give us that much of an advantage when Trek planned on teasing them on launch anyways. So the first information we get about Janus Towers is on Terminus there is a computer monitor of the world, and there are two markings on it listing other Janus facilities, however, it specifically lists them as being offline. One is Mansion, the other being the towers. Now, I have to assume they are offline because of Sam causing the outbreaks, and maybe in the process the power got disrupted and fractured the mainframes, so maybe on both the Mansion and Janus Towers maps, we are going to have to turn on the power, as opposed to, for example, Citadelle Des Morts, where no power is required. The other mentions of the Janus Towers come from quotes in the game that I'll play for you right now.
Those towers were built to test our faith, and we had none to hold back the evil within them. Janus people filled my church, drank my wine, asked for forgiveness. I was overjoyed. Panos, he worked at Project Janus, kind of a genius. Always bitching about office politics and weird experiments.
I'd much rather listen to his war stories than chit-chat with the backstabbers in Janus Towers.
Inside of Terminus, it lists the mansion as being in West Virginia, however the dimensions are a bit off and it would imply that the Janus Towers is actually further away. However, I think they are both right in Liberty Falls and can be seen from Liberty Falls. I just think this is just a mistake with the map, and I think it's just not really meant to be geographically accurate. It's just giving us a preview of the maps to come and teasing them, and Treyarch have done plenty of mistakes like this with their maps in the past, so it's not really a big deal, to be honest. And I think it definitely must be close to Liberty Falls, considering the fact that Panos is mentioning backstabbers there, so they must be in close proximity for them to be communicating with each other. And apparently there's been a lot of office politics and weird experiments going on in the mansion and also Janus Towers. Now, the other mention of Janus Towers is actually from Owen Guthrie's research. Obviously, he was diving into everything Janus related because he was trying to break it to the press, but he got caught by Modi and she eventually turned him into patient 13, of course. But there are mentions of the mansion facility, and there's also mentions of the towers, and he doesn't know what these are, obviously. Now, I do believe that these towers are the giant towers like I've been talking about on the channel that can be seen in the distance of Liberty Falls. I think the following two maps after the dig site are both going to be in Liberty Falls, in a similar sense to how we're having Citadelle Des Morts and also the Tomb dig site map back to back, both in Avalon, France. I think we're then going to come back to Liberty Falls and get some maps very close to each other. Now, considering it seems very likely we're getting multiple maps in Liberty Falls, I've seen lots of people complaining about this, saying they don't want the maps to feel too similar, but from what we've seen, I think these maps are going to be strikingly different from Liberty Falls. For one, Liberty Falls is just within the town section. The mansion map is going to be completely different. It's going to be very close quarters in a mansion, of course, and at least the majority of the map is going to be indoors, probably some of it going underground to where the Sam AI is. Maybe you can go outside on the hill. However, the majority of the map is probably going to be in the mansion, completely different to the town itself, as well as the fact that the Janus Towers facility, if you look in the distance of Liberty Falls, these giant towers are absolutely colossal in size, and they are also on fire and destroyed. So most likely when Sam caused the outbreak in the mansion and also the town itself, this also happened in the Towers facility at exactly the same time. Potentially this is even where the scientist was in the intro cutscene. I'm not exactly sure, who gets teleported away alongside Richtofen. And God knows what sort of crazy experiments they have been doing inside of these towers, if they've been doing stuff with time displacement and time travel. I think obviously the main goal of Richtofen with Janus, I think he wants to find a way to restore his family that were killed by Sam and Weaver. In doing so, he had two departments, the biological one where he could try and create a physical body with a single sample of DNA, which Modi failed at. However, the other method could be stuff related to time travel, trying to go back to the date of their death or something like that. But what is going to be the wonder weapon on Janus Towers? Well, there's been many wonder weapons leaked in the files of the game, one being the Wunderwaffe that is probably going to be the one on the mansion map, considering Richtofen has it in the intro cutscene. So I'd have to assume the other one that was leaked, which is the Raygun Mark II, is probably going to be the one on this Janus Towers map, and I think it thematically fits in with the map as well. If it is like a technological facility, I think it would make a lot of sense. And also, it seems like Janus Towers is going to be a stark contrast to the other maps, because so far we've had Liberty Falls, which is just an outbreak right after it's ensued. It's a pretty basic map, not much going on, but then we have the stark contrast where we have a biological facility on Terminus Island, a very desolate island, but it was going for the more scientific approach again. But then when we jump over to Citadelle Des Morts, they were leaning more into the magical stuff, with the chaos story being reintroduced into us trying to find the Sentinel artifact. But then when we go over to dig site, we're going to probably be successful in using the amulet to piece together the Sentinel artifact. As a result, I think that dig site's going to be be even more magical and even more mystical than Citadelle Des Morts. I think it's going to be pretty much a hard-on Chaos map. Then for Mansion, I've got a feeling like that's going to be a good mix between the two, where we have the more magical stuff mixed in with the science again, and then maybe we might go back to the hard science with Janus Towers. We could have a good blend of all of these different things, but it's hard to know what the map is actually going to be like on Janus Towers, considering we only see them in the distance. It's hard to make out what exactly is going on there, and you can also fly over with a chopper gunner, and not only can you get a look at the Janus Towers, but you can get a good look of the hilltop mansion as well, where Richtofen is, because it's right behind the church in the distance, right on the hill, and that's also where Blanchard is camping out. Now, in terms of where Panos runs off to as well at the ending of the Liberty Falls Easter egg, he might have actually gone to Janus Towers, so he could be something we faced there potentially, or on the mansion, but I'd have to assume he would go to Janus Towers, considering the quotes that I mentioned earlier regarding backstabbers there, and he still has loose ends to tie up. Now, regarding the voice that has been talking to Panos, I personally believe it's the Sam AI, however, I think he believes it's the real Samantha Maxis when it actually isn't, and that's going to lead to some tension there. I think she's going to be getting him to do his bidding for whatever goal she wants, whether it's to get a physical body, such as going inside of Etherella, which would make a lot of sense if we're going back to Liberty Falls. But I'm really looking forward to this map because I think it's the one which is the most secretive. We've got a good idea now of what the dig site map's going to be like. We have an image of it. We have a good idea of the mansion map, considering literally the entire Liberty Falls intro cutscene is within it, but we're not so sure on the Janus Towers map. And previously, I thought that Janus Towers would be DLC 3 and then DLC 4 would be the mansion map when I was speculating before release. But now the game's actually come out and I've had longer to think about it, I'm thinking that actually the Janus Towers could be the final map. So it does seem like we might just be getting 4 DLC maps like usual in the post-launch. Maybe Trek wanted to do more maps, but obviously they have to work on COD 2025 Zombies as well. So it's a lot of work for them to get 2 Zombies experiences coming out back to back. So they need to spread out the content, I guess, across 2 games, and that's a lot of power needed. And the thing is, right now, Trek have been teasing both Mansion and Janus Towers with the launch of the game. However, Citadelle Des Morts has given us no new information on either of those. However, obviously, with Dig Site, they will probably tease the next map after that. So we will know probably when that map releases which one, Mansion or Janus Towers, will be next after, so we can deduce which is the final map. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more teasers regarding Janus Towers and Mansion, or at least one of them on the next map. Probably the one that's going to be following will get the most teasers, but we already have a decent amount of information to go on, but there's definitely a lot more information to come. And of course, when Dig Site comes out, if we get a lot more new information about these DLC maps, I'll of course make a follow-up video. But a big reason why I think Janus Towers will be DLC 4 is, judging from the mansion, I think Janus Towers is going to be the bigger map because they look like colossal towers, whereas the mansion, yes, it's pretty big, but it doesn't seem like the biggest map in the world. Obviously, we might go underground, but maybe that's just going to be in the boss fight if we gain access to that elevator, and maybe we can go outside on the hill as well. But we'll probably be able to see the town of Liberty Falls as well from both the mansion as well as Janus Towers, just like how we can see those maps from Liberty Falls because they're right next to each other. And the Janus Towers just seem so mysterious to me and mystical. But if the map is going more in the hard sci-fi approach, once again, there has been a Mecha Klaus found in the files of the game, so Klaus might be returning. Obviously, he's also in the Vault Edition, and I would love to see Klaus back. Maybe Brutus could return as well, considering we have Archibald to do with the Dig Site map. Maybe that could be the new version of Brutus. We'll have to wait and see. Regardless, one map is going to have Klaus on it, and when I look at all of the maps, Klaus makes the most sense to be on Janus Towers because Klaus is a robot, obviously, and that's the more technological map. And if they were to have Klaus on Mansion, again, it doesn't make as much sense when we already have a big robot there, that being the Sam AI. But Mecha Klaus, I don't know what that could be. It could be that Klaus has had a hefty upgrade. Maybe he's more like a Panzer Soldat now. Maybe the Janus Towers is actually the manufacturing place for Klaus. Now, obviously, Klaus got sent into the Dark Ether on Marauder Totem to detonate the warhead and save the world from the Forsaken. So potentially he could return from the Dark Ether, but at the same time, it is just a robot, it is just AI, so who's not to say a near infinite amount of these can be produced over and over again. And also, we've speculated in the past that Klaus is actually based on the AI personality of none other than Richtofen himself. So we have an AI Sam in the storyline, and also a Marauder Totem. We had similar AI technology made by Dr. Grey for the Cerberus Wonder weapons, which contain the AI of all of the Requiem heads. So if our theories are true that Klaus is actually based on Richtofen, wouldn't that be so cool to see that explored or potentially even fully confirmed on this map? And we do know the Hellhounds are returning at some point. They were found found in the files and U2s are releasing them. So it might mean that it's coming very early, or it could be coming with Dig Site, or it could end up coming with Mansion or Janus Towers. So I think that's part of the reason why I feel like it's going to be DLC 4. However, another reason is because I think that Mansion is going to be the map where we're going to be trying to save Richtofen, probably as the purpose of the Easter egg. He might even be communicating to us from the Dark Ether. Maybe on Dig Site right at the end of that, we'll realize that the Sam AI is the one who caused the outbreaks, and she might get angry and then send us over to Liberty Falls for what she wants us to do next. Assuming we are successful in collecting the Sentinel artifact for her, she might send us to Liberty Falls because she wants a physical body, whether it be Etherella or something like that, or maybe she's working on the behest of the Shadow Smiths or some other evil agenda. But I think it would be perfect if we managed to rescue Richtofen, then he can be a playable character on Janus Towers. That would be perfect. I really hope Treyarch allow Richtofen to be a playable character. He needs to be a main crew as well, not just an operator, although I think it would be cool if we do rescue him on the Mansion as he becomes an operator bonus, but we all know they want to sell him in the store, so they might not be generous because they're going to make an absolute boatload of money if they ever sell him as an operator. I just worry that because the original characters are returning with COD 2025 zombies, that they're not just saving us to play as Richtofen until that game. At the end of the day, Janus Richtofen is a very unique version of Richtofen, very different to any we've seen before, and as far as we're aware, the COD 2025 original characters will be new iterations of them, so it might not even be Janus Richtofen. It could be a new version we've never seen before to join the other new versions. But maybe at the end of the story, we're going to see Richtofen and the Sam AI battling it out just like the good old Ether days, and we're going to have to choose with which one we side with. Because I think the purpose of the Mansion map is us going to learn about Richtofen's history and his past, with getting brainwashed by MK Ultra, by Gabriel Kraft to try and rid him of his nightmares of the Ether. I think we'll grow to empathize with him as we learn about the horrific acts that Weaver and Samantha Maxis did. And Weaver was acting just on the intel given by Samantha, so he could rid himself of the guilt if all of the blame ends up getting placed on Samantha Maxis. And whilst Richtofen obviously has done horrible things in the storyline, and all of the characters want him dead currently for locking them up and backstabbing them as their ex-director, when they learn about his horrific history and what Weaver did, they really could grow to empathize with him, especially Weaver, considering he already seems to be starting to empathize with him, judging from when Kraft mentions that he is his child in the Citadel ending. He's realizing, wait, this is someone who people care about, and it clearly made him remember what he did to Richtofen's own son. So if it is a battle between Sam as well as Richtofen, maybe we're going to see something similar to the Black Ops 2 storyline playing out, because many of the current story has been mirroring that, and I think a very good idea could be that these towers actually work similar to the polarization towers from Black Ops 2, and maybe Samantha Maxis instead of Ludwig Maxis will be against Richtofen in trying to power them up to gain power over the Ether. Richtofen might be trying to figure out a way with temporal flux to bring back his family from the Dark Ether. Maybe Samantha will be trying to gain a physical body, or maybe she's working for some sort of demonic entity such as the Shadow Smiths or the Forsaken or something else. Regardless, I think that would be a really cool setup. Another possibility is that the Sam AI, because we know she's probably going to be an antagonist because she's lying to us, and we will discover that sooner or later. Carver is already suspicious.
Let's play this out. Kraft points us at the shiny magic doodad, we bring back Maxis, and then kick down Richtofen's door. What's Sam get out of this? What's her angle?
If Richtofen treats his artificial friends like his real ones, maybe she just wants him gone.
It could be that she's just dealt with on the Mansion map, or potentially even earlier, she's killed off, and that's that. Especially with the recent concerns about Julie Nathanson getting recasted, they may cut their plans early, and because of that, it may then set up some other big bad, because obviously stuff has to tie in at some point with Ava Jansen and the Shadow Smiths. But I think that's more so going to be the cliffhanger of the storyline. I personally think we're going to finish the game, defeat whatever immediate bad there is, and I personally think we're going to side with Richtofen at the end, which I will have a video probably already out going more in depth on this subject, which will be linked in the description. And I personally think Richtofen might get a happy ending if he is successful in rescuing his family. It would be nice for him to finally get a happy ending. Zombies never get a happy ending, and whether you think he deserves it or not, it doesn't matter. Sometimes horrible people can only change through the acts of kindness, and if he's able to just live out his life with his family, that could be that. And obviously we know the storyline somehow has to get to 1996, and personally I think the whole of the Black Ops 6 magic zombie storyline is going to be wrapped up in a mere matter of months, considering barely any time passed between Terminus and Citadelle Des Morts. There's probably only going to be a day or so, or maybe weeks, between Citadelle Des Morts and Dig Site since it's down the road. And personally, I think the SAM AI will teleport us over to Liberty Falls, or we have to take transport. Either way, I don't think it's going to be a crazy amount of time, and then if we're getting 2 Liberty Falls maps back to back that are very close to each other, again, probably a mere matter of days or weeks will happen between the maps. But yeah, I do wonder who is going to be the boss fight on Janus Towers. Maybe it could even be Panos if he's been corrupted by the Dark Ether or is working for the SAM AI and believes it to be Samantha Maxis. That could be very well possible, or maybe we don't even defeat Sam on Mansion. Maybe we fight Panos there or something like that. Blanchard will probably be communicating to us throughout both of these maps, at least on the Mansion map. He'll probably be definitely helping us to try and get to Richtofen, I assume. But I assume that if the Mansion map does come first, we're going to learn so much about Richtofen, so we'll be all clued in on his backstory, so that's not left to the final map. So the final map can be more climactic, knowing the history that has gone into it, because there's so many gaps in Richtofen's story that need to get filled in to explain more about what has happened and how he went down this dark path. But like I say, I really do think there's probably going to be some sort of time jump at the end, depending on whatever happens, where we have to learn that the Requiem heads are dying due to Ethereum exposure. They will sacrifice themselves in Urzikstan to give up their essence. I personally think their souls are within the Dark Ether, so maybe they will fight alongside our original characters as their souls, not their real people, inside of the Dark Ether. That would make a lot of sense and explains why Ava was having hallucinations of them, because their souls might still exist in the Dark Ether, in a similar way that Samuel's Richtofen's son's soul could exist as an orb in the Dark Ether as well, being protected by Mr. Peace. Whilst the Shadowsmiths could be the final boss on this map, we know they exist in Modern Warfare Zombies, and I think that they're not going to be a major role in this game. I think it's going to be part of the cliffhanger. We know the original characters are returning, and we know that the Shadowsmiths want to restore the multiverse and restore the original character's essence for an unknown reason. So that will probably be set up right at the end of the storyline. Maybe Richtofen is living a normal life for a few years, or all of the characters are, but they're dying. They're trying to live, but maybe right at the end of the story they learn of the Shadowsmiths, or they learn of this greater unknown threat in the Dark Ether wanting to return the original characters, and Richtofen, or potentially the other characters, have to concoct a plan to stop them, and they have to sacrifice themselves to somehow create a lock. And for some reason Ava Jansen is created as well, maybe to fight or defend against the Shadowsmiths, since we know the Shadowsmiths were only able to take Ava because the entity was defeated. The entity was actually protecting her all along, albeit in a demonic way, and wasn't really truly evil. It was actually needed. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ava Jansen ties into everything. It really is. I think right now there's just so many loose threads, it's hard to predict exactly how it's going to go. We have some kind of rough idea, but I think the problem with Modern Warfare Zombies is it's just set up so many things, and it's hard right now trying to work out how that all intertwines with everything. And I just hope that there aren't some or too many questions left unanswered by the end of it, you know, because right now we have the Sam AI that's going to get found out as lying at some point. We have Panos, who's probably working for Sam at some point. We have the real Samantha Maxis in the Dark Ether. We have the Shadowsmiths. We have the original characters returning. We have whatever Richtofen's endgame is going to be. We have rescuing Richtofen. There's so many questions left unanswered. And also, if Richtofen's in the Dark Ether sent in by Sam, is he going to encounter the real Samantha Maxis? How is he even defending himself whilst he's in there? Is he going to get corrupted similar to Samantha Maxis? Is he going to gain ethereal powers just like her? How has he been protecting himself when the Wonder Wharf got broken? There's so many questions. And also the biggest question is the Sentinel artifact. When are we going to use it? Now, we've been speculating maybe Dig Site will be a trial. However, it's clear that both Richtofen and the Sam AI need the Sentinel artifact for something, so I don't think we're going to activate it just yet on Dig Site. Whilst previously I've said we might, I'm now backtracking on that a little bit and thinking it doesn't make sense for us to activate it just yet when both Richtofen and Samantha need it for something, which is probably in Liberty Falls for the reason for us going there. So maybe it won't even be activated until right at the end of the storyline. So I've been saying, you know, maybe Janus Towers could be a more sci-fi map. However, if the Sentinel artifact is not actually used until the end of the storyline, maybe that could be used there instead, or it could be used on the Mansion if that's the final map. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't know what the Sentinel artifact will do. Will it somehow disrupt the Dark Ether and cause temporal displacement as Richtofen tries to rip his family back to life out of there, and it completely messes with the fabric of space-time? Who freaking knows? But both of them need the Sentinel artifact for something, so that's going to cause major chaos. Now, interestingly enough, the Janus Towers inside of Jingle Hells are not on fire, but I don't think this is any storyline indication. Obviously, this is just a fun event for Christmas, and I think they're just not on fire for aesthetics because obviously it's snowing, it's cold, so it doesn't make as much sense for them to be on fire. I don't think that's any story indication, but I guess it could be indicating, as I don't think the amount of time from February January all the way into winter would have passed by then. Anyways, let me know what you think of this map in the comment section below. In the description, I'm going to have a link to an in-depth video going over everything we know on Dig Site, and also another link to a video going over everything we know on Mansion. Do you agree with me? Do you think that Janus Towers could actually be the final DLC map, or do you think it could be Mansion? I keep flip-flopping on all of these things, but right now there is so much speculation to be had, and that's all we can do is speculate, and sometimes things absolutely land, a lot of the time, or most of the time, things are completely off, and that's all fun and games. Trek are purposely making us ask these questions, and I think that's one of the biggest drawing factors of zombies in general, and the storyline especially, is there are so many questions and so much mystery involved, and it's good proposing all of this speculation and questions. This is what molds the zombie storyline itself. Trek look at all of the speculation and they mold it and intertwine it with our ideas. So anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.